Let me start with a story. A woman once called me and said, "My mom fell yesterday, and the hospital is asking me questions about her medical decisions and finances. They're asking if I have power of attorney." And I realized I actually don't know. She was standing in the hallway of a hospital trying to answer questions about medications, discharge planning, and financial decisions. The doctors were asking who can make medical decisions. The hospital was asking who could sign paperwork. And suddenly she realized something terrifying. She might not legally have the authority to do any of those things. This happens to families every single day. Not because people don't love their parents, but because no one ever teaches adult children what they actually need to understand before a crisis hits. Welcome back to the Aging Parent Playbook. I'm Dr. Barbara Sparacino. I'm a triple board certified psychiatrist and the founder of the Aging Parent Coach. This podcast exists to help adult children navigate the complicated, emotional, and often overwhelming experience of caring for aging parents. Because at some point in life, the roles begin to shift. The people who once took care of us begin to need help themselves. And suddenly, we find ourselves stepping into a role we were never trained for. And if you've ever found yourself lying awake thinking, am I missing something important? Are we doing the right thing for my parent? What happens if something changes tomorrow? Then you're exactly who the show is for. For most families, the transition into caregiving doesn't happen all at once. It starts subtly. Maybe your parent repeat the same story 3 times during dinner. Maybe you notice unopened bills sitting on the kitchen counter. Maybe driving suddenly makes you a little bit nervous. Maybe they seem more forgetful than usual. At first, you tell yourself it's probably normal aging. And sometimes it is. But slowly something begins to change. That maybe there's a fall or a hospitalization or a new diagnosis. And suddenly the adult child realizes something uncomfortable. My parents may actually need help. Not someday, but now, today. This realization brings up a lot of complicated emotions because this isn't just about logistics. It's about identity. Your parent still sees themselves as independent. You still see them as the person who raised you. But reality is beginning to shift. And most families enter the stage without any kind of roadmap. No one teaches you how to navigate things like legal authority, medical decision making, financial oversight, safety concerns, memory changes, or sibling disagreements. Adult children suddenly find themselves trying to manage all of it at once while raising their own families, working full time, and managing their own stress. It's a lot. So, what do most people do? Well, they start searching for answers. They Google, They read articles, they join Facebook groups, they ask friends who have gone through something similar. And those things can absolutely help. But they also can create confusion because every family situation is different. What worked for one family may not work for yours. And sometimes the advice people receive online is honestly not great. I've seen families delay important legal decisions because someone told them they could handle it later. I've seen siblings stop speaking to each other because expectations were never discussed. I've seen parents lose financial protection simply because no one explained what needed to happen earlier. And look, this was not because families didn't care, but because they didn't have clarity. One of the biggest misunderstandings I see involves legal authority. Many adult children assume that if their parent becomes ill, they will automatically be able to step in and manage things. But that's not how it always works. Banks have rules, hospitals have rules, insurance companies have rules. And without the appropriate legal documents in place, families sometimes discover at the worst possible moment that they don't actually have the authority they thought they had. And look, that's incredibly stressful, especially when emotions are already running high because there's something going on. And this is exactly why I created something called the Aging Parent Legal Strategy Workshop. The Aging Parent Legal Strategy Workshop is designed to help adult children understand the legal and financial decisions that often come into play as parents age. Because these families tend to avoid these conversations. Understandably, no one wakes up excited to talk about power of attorney or advance directives. But these conversations become incredibly important when health begins to change. Inside the workshop, we talk about things like what legal authority actually means, why power of attorney is often misunderstood, how banks and hospitals determine who can make decisions, and the financial mistakes families make when parents' health declines. The goal is simple: to help families gain clarity before a crisis happens. And the workshop is intentionally affordable because I want families to access this information early before decisions become urgent. For many people, the workshop alone provides a lot of clarity. They finally understand the landscape. They know what questions to ask. They feel more prepared. But sometimes people realize during the workshop that they want help thinking through their specific situation. Maybe their parent already has health issues. Maybe their siblings involved and everyone has different opinions. Maybe there are questions about safety or finances. Maybe they're noticing memory changes. Or maybe they just want someone who understands this world to help them think through what the next steps should be. For those families, there's also an option after the workshop to book something called the Aging Parent Strategy Call. The Aging Parent Strategy Call is a 1-hour conversation where we look at your family situation together. We talk about what changes you've noticed, what concerns are coming up right now, what decisions may be coming down the road. And we walk through the 4 pillars that I teach inside my aging parent framework: legal clarity, family dynamics, care needs, and caregiver stress. By the end of that conversation, families usually walk away with a much clearer understanding of where things stand and what the next steps should be. Sometimes a single, focused conversation can prevent years of confusion or conflict. The workshop and the strategy call are really designed for adult children who feel like they're somewhere in the middle. The parent may be relatively still independent, but something is changing. Memory, health, mobility, safety. And they can sense that it's time to start thinking about these issues more intentionally. Or sometimes the complicated part is the family dynamic. Maybe one sibling is carrying most of the responsibility. Maybe there are disagreements about what the parent actually needs. Sometimes simply having a structured conversation about the situation can make an enormous difference. If you're listening to this and thinking, I wish someone had explained this to our family earlier, you're not alone. Almost every family wishes they had started these conversations sooner. That's exactly why I created the Aging Parents Legal Strategy Workshop. It's designed to give adult children clarity about the legal and financial decisions that matter most as parents age. You can find the link to register in the show notes. And if after the workshop you want more personalized guidance, you'll also have the option to book an Aging Parent Strategy call where we can look at your individual situation together. As always, thank you for being here. And if you're listening to a podcast like this, it tells me something important about you. You care about your parent. You want to do the right thing. And that matters more than you realize. Until next time, this is Dr. Barbara Sparacino. Take care.